Sharita. Here we go, sacrifice. Oh, German Shepherds. You guys have dogs?
Yeah, I have a poodle.
Oh,
Yeah.
how are they with shedding? They're pretty good.
She doesn't shed a lot. We get her trimmed. So,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Is it Jordan Peters?
I think it is. Her name's Bella.
Oh, wow, that's my daughter's
And
name.
she is rotten.
WXIR
What station is this?
100.9.
Okay.
So you guys can wear the radios or listen to that. It's fine.
Okay.
I think that it would maybe be better if we were separate. We both just maybe in a separate way. 'Cause our love's just not the same, and we're doing such strange things. So we both been left
So they
the
can
same.
listen to
You
100.9
don't
right
even
now.
call.
Yeah.
Of course.
If you're waiting for that, you know what you have to do? You have to create the perfect time and the perfect opportunity and the perfect situation. So a lot of people become comfortable. They stop growing. They stop wanting anything. They become satisfied. People getting ready to go to jobs that they don't like, jobs that are making them sick. You see, when you're not pursuing your goal, you are literally committing spiritual suicide. When you have some goal out here that you're stretching for and reaching for that takes you out of your comfort zone, you'll find out some talents and abilities you have that you didn't know you have. When the message of misery visits you, what are you going to do? What will keep you in the game?
Good afternoon. You're listening to Rising Up Recovery on 100.9 FM WXIR. Here with Danny Hefner.
How we doing, everybody?
Hey, we got Sharita Treywood Johnson in studio with us today, and Van Smith. How you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming out today.
Yeah.
Now, I know, Van, we ran into a little bit of the weather thing last time, so we're
Yeah.
glad to have you here. We got a little sunshine going on.
Yes.
Okay. And to our folks also, when we're live right now, Rising Up Recovery on Facebook. How you guys doing?
Hey.
So, Sharita,
Yes,
making a big run now.
I'm running.
It's palpable.
Yeah.
And what about Joe Robot dropping out? It's pretty big news.
Sign of things to come.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just want to say, you know, Joe served our community for 18 years. You know, so that's no small feat. You know, we appreciate his service to the community. I was happy to hear, because it had been rumored, that he was resigning. And just that there are people in this community that probably would have voted for him, but him knowing, like, I am in a position right now where I really can't bring resources to Rochester, to this area. So I'm going to step aside. Like, I felt that was big, you know, and we need
He's a
to,
big man to do
yeah.
that.
yes, yeah.
And he's been a great person for the opioid epidemic too,
Yeah.
Rochester especially.
Yeah.
He's a great man. And, Dan, I got a question here for you.
Okay.
We're talking about the expansion of the houses right now too.
Yes.
Now, getting in touch with local politicians, like Sharia, how often does that come up in your work?
Often.
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 So,
Yes.
if we want to go get a house, if someone's an addict and they need help, how does that work with your organization?
So the way it works is they actually can contact our office at 585-413-0551, or they can fax us, 413-0626 if they're a care provider who is looking to place a resident in our program.
And we met on the Hope Dealer show.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun. You came in like the last half. There was a few problems going on, but we worked it out. And you couldn't step in with us that day. That was still fun though.
Yeah, it was fun.
Now, when you guys get a chance to talk to people on the radio, is there anything that you guys like to get across though for the community here in recovery? I don't think a lot of people talk about it too much with addicts, the representation that they have here in Rochester. That's why it's a big deal for us to have you guys come on. Is there anything you might like to say to some people on that?
I think for me, the most important thing is just knowing that, you know, the world has not turned its back on you, you know, that we still love you, we still embrace you as a community, and we just want to see people get better. We want to make sure that there's services and resources to really wrap our arms around not just the person in recovery, but also the family and the relationships they may have lost.
What about something on Facebook? Danny and I on Facebook posting stuff. Sometimes it just gets into the group and then nobody answers.
Oh, man, you do more posting than I do too. Let's be honest.
It's funny, there'll be something with like overdoses in the area over a 10-year period, and some people talk, and then we'll post it like a mocktail event, and it'll just immediately jump up. But
20 comments in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
But as far as something I put up the other day with race, somebody said when it was an epidemic involving whites, no, blacks,
The black community.
black community,
Yeah.
there was a big thing about it, like coming together and local resources, community, and especially police organizations getting together. It was all just SWAT coming into people's neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Is there a cultural divide there in the epidemic? Did you take that in?
So I think that there is a cultural divide, and to not acknowledge that exists, it doesn't help us in terms of trying to bridge that divide. I believe that there are more resources today than it has ever been, and some would say that it's because we've learned from our past mistakes, and to a degree, I would agree with that. However, from where I sit, I believe that it's because of the folks that are experiencing the epidemic. Families, when addiction touches your family, it makes it personable for you, and I think that that's part of the equation that we often haven't seen out front. I'm not saying that folks haven't experienced it. I'm just saying that when we look at the numbers.
And through those changes back then too, I mean, there's Facebook, the internet, and those
Right.
resources
Yeah.
too that are available.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and it makes me think about an article you recently posted, Jake, about the court systems and how they've been handling addicts and addiction, and how ethnic communities are given the sore thumb on that, or the they're not treated as fairly as the white community, right? Like harsher punishments are being dished out to addicts in general of ethnic background. And what can we do about that? Do you find that to be a realistic thing? And what can we do to change the courts?
So, well, to respond to the first part of the question, and I want to address your portion as well. I do think that there has been a cultural divide. I think we have a great opportunity now. Now that we have more faces at the table, I'm always the type of person that, I try to look at, okay, where are we right now? And so because because of the opioid crisis, and we are changing the way that we're looking at this epidemic overall, everybody's going to benefit. So there's an opportunity for all people to come to the table and say, okay, how can we serve, addicts in this community and that community, and just bring them together. The other thing I would add to that is in terms of our criminal justice system, we are starting to see some reforms. We're starting to see bail reform. We're starting to look at how we are sentencing folks who, are really ill. They don't need to be incarcerated. And inside our criminal justice system, they're not getting help in jail. You know, they're learning, they are in there, they're suffering, they're in gym pop for the most part because we don't have the resources to separate them. And then they come out and they are still addicted and they go back to jail. So we are just creating a cycle. However, there are forces we are looking at this. There are groups that are working tirelessly to change our criminal justice system. And we are gonna see a change. It's not gonna be overnight, but we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep it on the table in front of us so that we can continue to move forward as a community.
You know, this is a good talk about the politicians we have come on.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, it's nice to say it's progressive, but this is the thought that it should have been 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Robin Reynolds Wilt. She was
Yeah,
she was
awesome.
awesome to talk about it. Especially, one of the big things for Rising Recovery, a lot of people know is we like to help felons. I'm a felon. I like to call myself a reformed felon. If that helps. But something to help people in the community in recovery, because I think there's a stigma for people in recovery. And then there's another one if you're also a felon,
Right.
trying to do something to help out. the
Right.
community. But one of the people that we're really close to, Robert Peter, what's the name of his business?
A better high.
Better High.
Mhm.
Great counselor.
Robert.
Robert's the man. Isn't he cool?
Yeah.
And you know, it wasn't until after I had him for some counseling that I found out he'd done 8 years. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But he always encourages every single day to go over there and help other people, especially because that kind of strength that maybe you only get from being incarcerated, helping other people. He's on the Day Show for that too.
Personalized addiction recovery.
And I think one of the other things too is when we look at not necessarily the opioid epidemic, but addiction in general, is that there's another, when we look at the recovering community in terms of peer empowerment services, there's a huge value there, and that's made a tremendous difference in terms of being able to treat addiction a day at a time, is having individuals who have experienced addiction now utilizing their lived experience in recovery for the purpose of helping others. That's another benefit that we didn't have years ago, 20 years ago, as it relates to the substance abuse world. The mental health world has, for ages, had peer empowerment service, so it's not necessarily new to them, but in terms of the substance abuse world, it is new.
Another thing we'd like to talk about is kind of the homeless conditions here in Rochester. It happens, we think a lot about it this type of year because of holidays,
Sure.
especially the Hope Dealers see them out every single Sunday.
Yeah.
That plays into mental illness, which also goes into addiction. Do you have any kind of views on that too, we could talk about, or what you might want to see for Rochester in the future?
Absolutely. So I do want to say one other thing about the recovery community. For about a year, I would go over to the core network and talk to recovering addicts in a group. And I just want to say that so I was brought in to kind of give, hope and, encouragement, but they really encouraged me. Like the stories, the struggles. And so I think that we have to value our people in the because we all have a struggle. It may look different,
Right.
but it's all a story and a struggle. So I do want to say that, and hopefully someone will hear that and open their hearts and their minds to hear someone else's story. It's not always what you think it is. People fall into, situations for many reasons. So with that being said, when we talk about our homeless community, what I have learned, because we have a nonprofit organization and we do a lot of work in the community, specifically talking to folks over at Hope Village, some people are there because, you think the solution is build everybody a house, give them, but some people want to be there. And I know that's a little, but it's true. We have talked to people and they prefer to have their independence. Do they need help? Yes. Can we coordinate resources? We were there this summer. It was like 90 degrees a couple days. So we brought water and it was interesting. Yeah, of course, my community, it's my people, So we brought water and one of my volunteers was so excited, said, I'm gonna bring a deep freezer. And so he went, he brought this deep freezer over and he's like, where do I set it up? Where do I plug in? no electricity. So sometimes, we feel like we know how to like help a problem, but so the freezer was there and we ended up filling it with ice and that was fine. But it was just kind of one of those moments like, you can't just go in and just fix it. You got to have a conversation and figure out what do people really need so we can coordinate the right resources. There was one solar panel that they had at that time that was built by students from RIT. One panel. We've got to, I teach at RIT, and I'm thinking like, I know we can do better than one solar panel. It was helpful to them because some, you could plug up a cell phone or, an electric shaver. But again, just the idea of if we could coordinate the resources and then build from there, what kind of community do they want?
But be mindful of what the conditions are really there on the ground.
Yeah.
It's great.
So as a member of the Homeless Service Network, we actually are connected to, when I say we, I'm talking about Recovery Houses Rochester, which is the nonprofit organization that I am a part of that provides peer recovery housing and peer empowerment services. As a member of the Homeless Service Network, there are hundreds of community care providers that are offering services to the community. However, there is still a need of about, I believe, 876 individuals are homeless in this community on any given night. And so with that being said, there's still a need for more coordination in terms of what we do have, as well as additional housing needs. And a lot of us have gotten behind the housing first model, which is put somebody into a place and then work on giving them the services that they need. I agree with that to a degree, because not everybody wants to go into an apartment by themselves and experience depression and other challenges that they're experiencing. So in my mind, in terms of the continuum, we need to have new models part of this system as it relates to addressing the needs of the homeless, because the numbers are really high when we look at folks that we call that the special needs population, who have substance abuse disorder, as well as mental health challenges that they're dealing with. And just putting somebody in a place isn't always the solution, but I believe that in terms of the looking at person-centered care, we look to match the need in regards to what the challenges are of the individual. We look to meet that need.
So that's striking. That reminds me of like what you were just saying there. You just said, if for all those people, I'm thinking like, well, just put them in a house, just get them fixed up, put them in there. I think so. We get told with addiction.
Yeah.
I think some people get told, well, just put them in NA or AA. It'll just fix itself. Just take them
So I
somewhere.
guess a good point to that is, Jake, let's say you were to go to somebody's house that you just met the other day.
Mhm.
You go there, do you feel like you can utilize that house like it's your own? No, because you're not comfortable there. It's not yours, right?
Right.
So you need to be able to have something that these people feel like is theirs, right? Because it's probably, and I don't know a lot about the homeless population, but I'm just speaking on personal experience and what I would feel like if I was in their shoes,
Sure.
right? So how do we do that? How do we, combat that thought process? And then how do we get the homeless the help that they need once they do get in that situation,
I think there is a tremendous need in this community for more mental health services. I think we have some great providers, boots on the ground, but we need more. I was also going to add, we have a growing population of homelessness in our schools, kids that are homeless. We are dealing with that in education for various reasons.
I'm blind to that. You gotta tell me about
Yeah,
that.
so-
I had no idea.
Yes, so and it could be for a variety of reasons, but kids are coming to school and you know, their parents, maybe they've been evicted, maybe the family had to flee in the middle of the night for some reason. So there are, you know, a variety of reasons why kids are homeless in all districts. It's across the board. And so we are having to combat those issues. And, you know, what happens is we need to have those support services in place. Everywhere there are people, we need to have access to services. And you know, it's the trauma in the community. Like you said, just being able to change that mindset. Well, how does one change a mindset? You know, it takes practice. It takes work. You started your show off with Les Brown. Yeah, I know Les Brown. I know that voice. I put my head down.
I saw that.
Like speak.
I gotta tell you that, I go over for my runs, and I swear to God, don't I put that on every spot?
Oh,
I go
I
jogging,
agree.
and Danny says, okay,
Again?
enough.
Again? I gotta listen at the radio.
Eyebrows go up, I'm like,
Don't be shut up there out of here. All right, that's not funny.
but no, it helps, and I think it's because inspiring.
It is. Yeah.
I think people are a little worried to get inspired, they sit down and listen to people too long, get uncomfortable by it.
Right. Right.
Like Wade, when we brought Wade Norwood earlier,
Sure.
Wade inspired me, a lot of it was kind of being tough on me.
Yeah.
It was not easy. I had some things I'm like, I didn't want to hear, but he kind of sat there and said some words to me that kind of stuck. And I'm like, okay, you know, maybe I'll try it. See if it'll work for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the reality is that people that are experiencing homelessness in the general community, they're people, right? First, that's a person first.
Amen.
Secondly, I think that when we talk about being able to model how to deal with challenges, when we look at folks that are offering care, it's important that we be able to model that and that we stay in reality. We stay in the moment as it relates to folks dealing with challenges. Nobody's immune from dealing with challenges. Some of us have more support than others, but I think the key thing is having a support network, a support system that's going to be able to assist you in that process, right? Because none of us are an island. And just like I need support when I'm dealing with a challenge, it's the same thing for a person that's dealing with homelessness or a person that's dealing with mental health or a person that's dealing with substance abuse or a child, that's experiencing challenges, more so a child that's experiencing challenges because, right, they didn't ask for that, right? They didn't ask for the barriers that they're being faced with as children. And when you look at even the situation that's going on with the district right now, I know that they're working overtime to try and save some of those teachers, but how does that impact the kids? How does that impact the families? How does that impact the community? So everybody is impacted by this situation, either directly or indirectly.
Thank you, man. I think we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after that. Oh, that's good.
That
So how long have you been
RCSD is
studying
big.
over there?
Yeah.
How long have you been teaching over there?
3 years. Yeah.
Okay. What do
Yeah.
you teach?
Criminal justice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is that, are you with Dr. Clovis? Is he still there?
He is still there. I
Okay.
am not with him.
Okay.
Yes, but yes, I know
Okay.
of him.
All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
He's wrote a lot of grants
Yes. Yeah.
around
And
criminal
they're doing,
justice.
I think that there's some great pockets of the work.
Okay,
It's just how do we coordinate it,
right,
so that it's affecting, it's touching everyone.
right.
I always think of like hospitals. To me, they do like the best triage care. If you've ever gone to the emergency room, right? How many people you need to see before you leave? Really, that's the type of coordinated care that we need on the ground to deal with these
Yeah,
problems.
I agree.
That's
I agree.
it's my opinion.
Right, no, I agree. I agree.
We we gotta tell you about this Chinchurro's place.
Oh my God.
You guys looking for a good lunch spot?
Okay.
It is amazing.
Or you can join us.
Where is it?
It's literally maybe 30 seconds away.
If
you go out, you know what drives there.
I gotta tell you, we just told. Hey.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. But it's like 1 street over. We just decided to go there. Wait, I don't care. Let's check it out real quick. The sandwich is like $6 for a giant sandwich.
Are you serious?
Probably thinks that we're trying to like get the ads off. But you say this place is really close by? What?
Yeah.
There's a place on Norton. It's Norton and is it Norton and Joseph? It's a little Spanish restaurant, and I love their empanadas. I love everything. When I come in, they're like, "Oh, I'm like, give it all to me." It's so good. And you know what? I love a great soul. Like they're so warm when you go in. Like the food feels like it was cooked with love.
We love this place. We just stopped in. It was cold.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Don't take a seat. Nobody hang out here. I was like, oh, maybe we will. All right. Yes. Good. Beautiful. Hey, you're listening to Rising Recovery, WXIR 100.9 FM. Good to be back. Danny, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic.
Sure.
Happy to be here.
I don't know. Just you're spinning those ones and twos.
Yeah.
Van almost took over for a second. And speaking of music, we got an event coming up. It's going to be hosted by Danny
And you?
me and Tony Gigello and Jason Hilton over at Pop Rock Cereal Bar. So if you're over the East Avenue area on Friday, the 20th, step in 7:30. We got a DJ, we got music, we got drinks, all mocktails, no alcohol, no entry fee. We got like 150 people already going.
And Jay, tell the people what your favorite one was.
You know what? I'm going to say Sleigh Driver. Yeah, no, I switched
Oh
up.
my, you are ridiculous.
You made it.
You are ridiculous.
What are you talking
But
about?
it's not the best one. It's not. It's just Sugar Pop Crunch. So if you're coming by, that's the drink you want to
Yeah,
get.
don't waste your money on the Sleigh Driver, apparently.
Exactly.
You made it.
It's so good.
Anyway, the money
Actually,
helps out a good cause, and it's a lot of fun. And if you guys want to try playing video games on there, we will be having a
Oh my
tournament.
God, I can't wait to beat you.
Well, okay. We'll see how this one goes.
We all know you're not very good at games.
But yeah, man, if you get a chance, man, check it out.
Yeah,
Check it out.
absolutely.
It'll be a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, my game is Pac-Man. No,
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. We play
Pac-Man.
over at what was it? What did you play?
The
Social.
radio social.
Radio Social. Have you played on that one?
No.
It's a huge. Oh my God, it's so cool. It's a 4-way battle royale mode. And oh yeah.
Oh
it's-
my goodness, I'm mean in Pac-Man.
Well, I tell you what. I mean, who won that night when we were playing, Jay?
I won.
No, you didn't.
You asked me. I'm not gonna lie to them on live.
You are. You are. And it was me. Just so you know. But anyways,
So, hey, we were talking about you're over at IT doing teaching. It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Criminal justice. How's that played into making some decisions that you're gonna be as a politician?
So, you know, every day that I stand before my students, you know, I have to relive the trauma, right? Because these statistics affect people in my community. You know, I have a son who's 14. And so, you know, we're learning all of these facts about what happens, how African-American males swell our jails and our prisons. So it is difficult to teach, but I teach it in a way, hopefully, that empowers the students to know they can change the community. And then I started to think for myself, because some of it is really bleak. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? You just going to keep teaching it? Or what part are you going to play in this, lady?
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. And it really has, it definitely has spurred my decision to want to get in this race. You know, I can't just be about it. I mean, talk about it. I got to be about it. So I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best, run my race. I'm going to bring the issues to the forefront that are important to me. And those that I talk to, and hopefully be successful in that.
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, pancake with Sharita, isn't that coming out? Okay.
Come eat with me.
Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah.
Down.
So this upcoming Sunday, December 22nd, we from 3 to 10 p.m. will be over at IHOP, and you can come and eat pancakes.
Yeah.
Eat pancakes, and the proceeds will go toward the campaign.
Will you have chocolate chip?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna be there.
Yeah. No, you can order anything you want. Yeah. So it's exciting.
Van and I would be there anyways. Oh yeah, we're here for you.
Yeah, right. Make sure you say my name at the desk so they know. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for
Don't get me in trouble. I'm
That's
supposed to
right.
be the Lion King.
No.
With the married couples from my church.
Oh, bring the group.
I think I've done this to you a few times.
Yes, you
I was
have.
like, oh, we're just probably gonna drink afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we're talking about the school thing going on here. We got a lot of young students out there on the news. I can't imagine that when I was in school.
Yeah.
They're pretty brave.
Yeah.
And now
Good
we-
for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Yeah. I think if anything, they are showing us, they're demanding
Yeah.
what they want. I'm like, get it, guys. This is
Yeah.
perfect. That is boots on the ground learning.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
whatever the outcome is, they can say that we had a part in
That's
this.
exactly right.
So I think we need to take an example out of their page, because sometimes as adults we get a little bit sleepy at the
Oh,
wheel.
100%. I was
Yeah.
at Teen Empowerment luncheon over the summer, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking, 900 people there at this dinner, and I'm thinking at lunch, I'm like, man, 16, 17 years old, and I'm seeing people in 60s, 70s, 80s, doesn't matter, being inspired by young people,
Oh,
those
yeah.
stories.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice to see. At any age of being inspired.
Yeah.
That's right.
Adrian Hale, right?
Yeah.
That's good guy.
Yeah.
I'll
He's
say
great.
that.
Yes. Mhm.
But if we have some community groups that we work with for resident recovery, it's been a lot of fun to get in touch with people and meet up and we talk to them about maybe some stuff that we want to do in the future. I hear boots on the ground over here with you. And then I got Van telling me we need an army. That's the first thing
That's
you
right.
said. We
That's
need an
right.
army.
That's true.
Sorry, but how much do you love that term boots on the ground?
Yeah.
You do so much. I just don't bring that up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm gonna cut you off. My apologies.
But what we talked about getting boots on the ground today, and having an army.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
So what that means is that it's a way of looking at our community becoming inclusive, right? Including everybody as it relates to the services that they provide, right? That in this continuum, you can have multiple providers, multiple stakeholders, everybody playing their part, right? In terms of meeting the need. We're going to need an army as it relates to meeting the various needs of people. We're not just going to need apartments, halfway houses. We're going to need recovery residences. We're going to need not just counselors and clinical social workers. We're going to need peers. We're going to need family empowerment programs. All of these services we're going to need, and we're going to need us working in a true collaborative.
And keep that momentum exciting too.
Right.
That's part of it. I
Right.
think people get so caught up in the grassroots and it's like, have that energy and that excitement, but to carry that on for years with everybody.
Yeah.
I see some stuff in the city newspaper, I'm like, oh, that's still going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. But how would something like this community group over here with Van, how would you be able to help that in your level if you were able to get in a position?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that, one of the many reasons that I want to take this on is because I think that this area, we have not gotten the resources that we deserve, So when you think about programs and funding, we get a lot of great programs and initiatives going, but then funding gets cut, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
then, the people that are benefiting from those programs, they're just kind of left. And there's either a gap in the system or some other agency tries to pick it up and their people are overworked. And it just
Sounds
turns
like
into
Jenga.
it. So, really, I think, at the state level, we can start to look at, okay, how are we funding these things and how can this be sustainable? The other thing is, I think we got to bring our kids in earlier. We need to get them involved in understanding how our system works. So it's not just, okay, you go to school, you graduate, you get a job, but here's some other things you can do to help benefit your community. Because there is a huge volunteer contingent here, right? But we need our kids to be more involved. You talked about how strong they are.
Right.
And so I'd like to see us coordinate more of those programs into our education system. I'd like to see us expand our BOCES and vocational programs. I'd like to see us, when we talk about economic development, really look at the reasons why, it's great to bring businesses into this area, but if they're not paying taxes, and I know that's like an iffy statement. I had a conversation with someone this morning. I was like, well, that's how you get businesses in, by giving them tax breaks. But I want to look at that creatively. And if that has to be the case, then what else are you offering us? And who's holding you accountable? Are you hiring our people, or are you bringing your own people in? And does that qualify? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. But I was going to ask, and I don't mean to put you on the spot,
Sure.
but my biggest question is this, if we are going to be allocating resources to these programs, there has to be a way of doing that, and a true plan to get there, so it's not like we can just take imaginary money and be like, this is great. They're all great plans, but where do we get that from?
Right.
Where do we get the resources, and if there's programs out there that maybe need to change, do we pull funding from certain things, or do we make more funding?
Right. So I think that one of the things we have to do is we have to look at the existing programs and we have to see what's working, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if we have done that kind of audit, but I think we do have to stop. I mean, what's happening in the city school district is right in our face, saying we've got to stop and figure out where the bleeding is, right? So one, I having, some help, some accountability, having the state come in and take a look at these programs, see what's working. There is money at the state level, the federal, and at the federal level, but you don't want to access those funds and they not go to good use.
Correct.
So, and the people that know this stuff better than me are the people that are working in these agencies. So we have to have this consortium of folks that come together where we are talking about what works and what doesn't work in an intentional way. Not just, it's a meeting on my calendar, but no, this meeting is so important. You need to come with your numbers. You need to come with your results so we can decide whether or not we continue to put resources here, because we have a gaping hole that really could use those resources if you're not doing, or your performance
benefits
is
worth the
not.
cost.
Yes,
Right,
basically,
exactly.
It's a
yeah,
guarantee. You want to see change, well, we want to see, make sure you're there too.
right.
Yeah.
So, because I'm in that world,
Yeah.
there is actually, that is happening.
Yep.
When we look at Medicaid redesign, we look at an organization called the Finger Lakes Planning Provider System, which is FLIPS. We're actually coming to the year end of year 5 as it relates to the Medicaid redesign dollars, which was to reduce hospitalization by 25%, right, in terms of looking at the high utilizers. We're actually coming to the year end of a 5-year program, and we're looking at a FLIPS 2.0, which is asking for a reallocation of resources to continue the work that has already begun or has been done based on the success. We're asking as a community for more resources, right, to continue these efforts. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about this new system called value-based payment. And value-based payment is really providing you with the resources based on the value that you can provide to the communities as it relates to your services that you are providing. So these things are currently going on right now, and value-based payment is really a hot topic in this community.
Yeah.
Get it out.
I'm a part of these groups, so not to talk about things that I'm a part of that's
Right.
going on. This is an opportunity to share information as
Yeah.
folks may not be aware of these opportunities that are out there in terms of
So we now when you
meeting
talk
the
about
needs.
value-based payment, is that specific to the homeless community?
And it's actually to all communities
Okay.
as it relates to care providers that are receiving Medicaid services, right? So it's a really, really big deal as it relates to, in comparison to the way we used to do things. Now, there are some challenges there. However, it is an opportunity as it relates to care providers.
Yeah.
Medicaid is a huge issue because, even when you talk to providers, many of, there are some providers that won't accept Medicaid without the HMO because in Medicaid, just the reimbursement rates,
Right.
Aren't high enough for them. If they accepted straight Medicaid, they would not be able to continue their practices. So then when you add the HMO, it pays a little bit more. So, I think Medicaid is going to continue to be on the table. I'm encouraged to know about this initiative. But we still have to, we have to do more.
I agree.
We have to do more. And
I
even
definitely agree.
in our schools, when we talk about, if we make a mental health referral for a student, some of them can't go to that referral because they can't afford the copay.
Right.
And that provider does not accept Medicaid.
That's right.
So then there's a gap there. So
Yeah,
those are some of
yes.
the things, other areas, like you said, challenges that we're
Right.
gonna have to close the
Yeah.
gap on.
Yeah.
And I could speak from personal experience, when I was, very heavily using and addicted myself, I went through my own situation where I lost my job, right? So what did I do? I applied for Medicaid and did all that. I get approved, but, I go out and I seek treatment, right? Okay, awesome. Yeah, we accept this insurance. They don't give you the rates. They don't give you how much you're paying or anything like that. 3 months later, I'm getting better. I'm not using like I was. They send me a bill for $1,500. I'm just like, where am I gonna get this?
Right.
Yeah,
This is
it's
just
real.
ridiculous. What do I have this for?
Right.
So, I think there's a lot of things that need to be changed with the system that
Yeah.
we currently have. I don't
Yeah.
think it works. And I think it's a money grab. I think it's meant to get money where they can and coat people's pockets. So, that's my.
I think a lot of people have that kind of view where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it must be very bleak because the bills are gonna come in at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that.
I talk to people all the time that are like, oh, I got a referral to see a neurologist. And mostly these are like our older people, but I can't go because I can't afford the copay. Or, here's a prescription for some medication, but I'm not gonna get it because it costs too much. So I feel like we shouldn't have to make those choices. And there are programs out there. We have so many programs, but we also have to do a better job in terms of educating our folks and knowing the whole picture, right? Am I gonna get a bill at some point?
Right.
What is this gonna cost me?
It's the worst.
Right.
Well, like it was literally 2 months after too, and you're sitting there like, why wouldn't I have most people send a weekly bill, or
Right.
if you have a car, you get one once a month and you know what
Right.
you're paying, right?
Right.
But there's no cost that got went over. There's no,
Yeah.
no.
Remember Danny called me, I can't repeat the conversation word for word, because the editing buddy will go crazy, but I remember Danny said, no, I'm gonna tell you another thing, oh, just ridiculous, $1,500. Yeah, Danny, it's quite a system here,
Yeah.
it's 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, well, it needs to be heard though. I mean,
And it upset me too, because I got a lot of friends who are in treatment recovery, and it's hard to know when you really do want some help. And even people on probation or people that had felonies and came back and they're on parole. It's really hard to get in that system. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be a little humiliating to ask for
I'll
help,
let too.
Absolutely.
for payments to get by. It's really tough. On that note, Dave, can you switch it over? Do you have a break for me?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thanks.
That was.
Appreciate it. Just gonna take a quick breath. Excuse me, guys.
A little warning there?
Yeah, sorry about that.
What's wrong?
What else did I ask for?
Are we off?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I wanted to ask, so like with the group that
Sure.
you're a part of, so what is the long range goal of it? Like, cause you're on year
Yeah.
5?
Five. Yeah. So the long range goal is to reduce hospitalizations and really be able to create more care providers that actually meet the needs of the people that they're providing care for.
Okay.
So we have a lot of systems right now that are part of this old system,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And some of them are big systems,
Yeah.
right? And what they've discovered is that the big systems are not going to be able to meet the need, right? Because they're so big.
Yeah.
So having community-based organizations who are going to be doing the work is a benefit to these larger systems in terms of creating new systems.
Okay.
So we're in a paradigm shift
Right.
where we're actually moving away from the way we've done care to communities.
So when you talk about big systems, are you talking about like hospital
Hospitals,
systems?
systems.
And then the community-based systems would be what? What does that look
would
like?
be like nonprofit organizations that provide services like a Baden Street settlement,
Okay. So
So
baby.
like recovery or
recovery
we're talking
fitness.
about local,
Yes.
right, nonprofits.
Right. Local, small nonprofit organizations that are doing some of this work now.
Okay.
You know, so that's the paradigm shift in regards to utilizing community-based organizations and helping them to develop their infrastructure so that they can meet the need. Because a lot of us right now can't meet the need in terms of the structure that we currently have in place.
Right. Okay. And where would the providers come in, like the actual medical providers?
So the medical providers would continue to do.
So they would still come from the big system.
They would come from the big systems. However, as it relates to meeting the needs of substance abuse individuals and mental health individuals, they have actually overwhelmed our healthcare system.
Right. Yeah.
And so if we don't meet that
Yeah.
need,
No, I get it.
it's going to continue to overwhelm
Yeah.
the medical system as it relates to people being able to go to the hospital and get care because they're sick.
Well, I mean, don't you think there's a plethora of factors? I think the recovery community is in the minority when you talk about using, Medicaid and things of that nature. There's a ton of people that are on there that are completely capable of working, capable of doing jobs, and let's say something goes wrong, they need a heart transplant or whatever it may be. That's where your cost is being allocated to. You're talking about someone in recovery who's spending, maybe $300 a month, on their services, which is maybe a meeting,
Right.
as opposed to, life-changing surgeries.
Right.
So there's a big differential there.
Yeah, there is a big differential there. However, when you have someone that is going to the emergency room because they're experiencing a high level of anxiety, and you're not talking 1 or 2 visits. These are folks that go on a regular basis.
Right.
Remember though, anxiety is different than addiction, right?
Yeah, no, I know that, but I'm just throwing that out as an example in terms of folks that may be experiencing some kind of behavioral challenge, right? What
Right.
the behavioral health community has determined, based on looking at these numbers, is that the need is overwhelming
Right.
in
Right.
terms
But
of
some people go to the emergency room
We're-
because the ambulance.
Hey, we're back.
Welcome back.
Okay.
Back to recovery, winter going on, WXIR. Hey, Danny, you guys were getting into a conversation here.
Well, we were, and
Yeah,
we're specifically talking about just the Medicare system, Medicaid system, and how certain aspects of it are being abused, and then because of that, we don't have the resources to allocate to, people that truly need it. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
So, I mean, Van, if you want to go ahead and elaborate a little bit on your philosophy there, that'd be cool.
So my philosophy was that as it relates to the behavioral health community, what has been determined based on from where I sit and what I see is that that the behavioral health community population has overwhelmed our healthcare system to a degree, And if we don't address that, it's going to continue to overwhelm the healthcare system, which was not necessarily set up to provide behavioral health needs, but to provide health care in general.
What were some of the top things that are filling that up?
We got high utilizers, right? Folks that go to the emergency room for everything, right? When you have a primary care doctor, right? Folks may need some coaching and education and some support around how to establish a relationship with their primary care doctor, or they may need to get a primary care doctor, or they may need to get other services that are more along the lines of preventive rather than going to the emergency room for everything. And then when you look at the what's that, emergency EMS, emergency medical system is taxed, right? I heard somewhere that there were like 9,000 calls, right? 9,000 calls, in a short period of time. And when you look at, if you were to look at those numbers in terms of the calls that they're getting and the kind of calls that they're responding to, they can't keep up.
And I think here's what we have to look at, though. I don't think it's, I mean, some people do abuse the system, yes, but the way I look at it is this: EMS, you were talking about that being an issue and costs associated. Well, let's look at the hospitals and the amount of money they charge for an ambulance ride to the hospital,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Yeah,
So,
it is expensive.
It's saying it like that and saying, we need to prevent people from calling the emergencies. No, they're there for that reason. They're there to be called. They're there to help people.
Right.
So telling people that they should not call them or should not be allowed to, or they're gonna be getting an absurd bill, I think to me, it doesn't make sense, right? We need to find a way to change the system, or, hey, most hospitals are nonprofit, if I'm not mistaken. So what are they doing charging somebody $800 for ambulance ride to the hospital, right? So you need to fix it at the root cause of the issue, which is the cost associated with
It's complex.
Yeah, it is complex. I mean, a lot of, when we think about our ambulances, they are private. So so those private companies are the ones that are charging and sending those bills, but it is an absurd amount. And I don't want someone making a judgment. If I'm at the emergency room, I don't want them to, make a judgment that this is not an emergency.
Right,
If I'm there, treat
You're there
me.
for a reason,
right?
This is an emergency to me.
Right.
So, but I would support programs to educate the community, because I do think that is important. I hear people say that they go to the emergency room because of transportation, because they can get an ambulance to the emergency room. And even though it's like, really, it exists.
Yeah.
And because it exists, we need to look at, okay, what are other ways that maybe we can transport to, an aftercare center? And then what time do our aftercare centers close? Right? So, there's some things that we really need to, some tender spots in our system. The other thing I wanted to bring up is in terms of education, when you talk about how, our behavioral health community is taxing the healthcare system. The behavioral health community is taxing every system. We need more mental health services. We see it in education. Many of our teachers are dealing with behavioral issues, and so it is impacting instruction. So one of the things that we're advocating for as school boards across Monroe County is a separate line item from the state, so that we can separate out mental health services. Because to try to bring in providers with our existing budgets, or to bring in community groups, it's just not feasible. And our mental health issues are growing. And like you started with, these are people. These are our people. To me, that's got to be the first. We got to get that first. Nobody's outside of the circle. Everybody's in.
That's
rule number one. At my house, everybody's in.
That's exactly.
And on top of that, you have to look at it like this. There's been, it's a different time. Okay, there's been so much more research put into mental health and how it truly affects an individual and where they end up in life.
Yeah.
So mental health plays a huge role in our health, our everyday life, our
Yeah.
happiness, and that's something we can't ignore.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
I've got a few people out there watching. Candace joined us on there. She's one of our followers.
We get questions.
We get questions.
I was gonna say, are you on Instagram, Mo?
I am on Instagram. Oh,
Okay.
wait, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Yeah, if you've got Instagram handles, that'd be great.
At Vote Treywick.
There we
Yes.
go.
Instagram.
Oh, Trey Wick.
Vote Treywick, yeah.
What about you, Ben?
I'm not on Instagram.
Oh,
okay.
You know
Is
what?
it coming in the future?
Yes, it is. It is
Okay.
coming.
Yeah.
Actually, have a young lady who is actually working with us to help with those areas in terms of social media
Oh, that's
platforms.
awesome.
But I am on Facebook.
Well, you know, the Instagram thing, we tried doing. I'm like,
Oh, I hate it with a passion. That's all you.
Yeah.
I don't like it either. So
It takes
I'm
too
still
long.
on
It
there.
just turns it inside out when you look at it and you're like,
I'm not on it.
Don't worry, man.
That's right.
I'm not.
We agree on that.
Okay.
So what are some major things that you're hearing on your campaign though? What are people telling you?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I want to say it is, I feel so honored to be able to just listen to people, that they trust me enough to hear their stories and share with me. I'm hearing things about early intervention, how there's so many children that are waiting for services, whether it's OT services or PT services. And that is a huge issue across the county. And that is something that I definitely want to make sure that we're addressing. We have to, and these are kids that, they may have to wait 5-6 months, before they actually start to get therapy, and they're losing time in school. So I'm hearing those issues. I'm hearing issues as it relates to jobs, how are we going to sustain our workforce? Where are young people going to work when they graduate,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm also hearing from, business owners, will we have a workforce with the, what's happening in our school district? The young people are supposed to come out and, work. What's going to happen if we're not graduating them? So those are some of the things, as well as the healthcare issues. When are we going to be able to fix some of the holes in our system? Mental health services, in education, making sure that I really want to be a voice in the state that says, if we're going to continue to raise standards, which I am in favor for, then we have to make sure that we are giving our school systems what they need with accountability.
Right.
Just don't throw money. I have kids. You can't just give them money and expect them to just come back with something, because you will get anything, right?
That's right.
So, with oversight and accountability, and I think we can do that in a, caring manner. So those are some of the things that I'm hearing on the trail so far. Yeah,
Well, good to have you.
Well,
thank you.
So one of the things that we like to do here is we are going to give both our great guests here an opportunity to give some shout outs and, put in the last word of whatever you want to tell any of our listeners. So, Van, if you wanted to go ahead and start that, that'd be awesome.
So first of all, I want to thank you guys for having us on today to be able to talk about things that are purposeful for us, particularly as it relates to me and the recovery community. What I want to say is that change is possible, that people can learn to live substance-free in the community. There are lots of resources out here that we have in this community, but there's still more that's needed, and that if you have a support system, use it. Utilize your support system, and don't just look at the existing systems in terms of what we're used to. Be open for change.
What's up?
Okay. So thank you both for having me. I so appreciate it. It was an honor to be here. I would just like to say to the recovery community that you matter, you count, and we need you. So please, as you're going through, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Tell your story. There's nothing wrong with there's no shame involved with your story. When you tell your story, I believe it truly frees you and you don't know what the other person on the other side may get from it. So I would encourage that when I am elected.
Hey.
I love the confidence.
Yes,
On that
yes.
note,
We will fight for resources to make sure that good programs can continue on. So that is my pledge to this area. I owe a debt to my community, and I want to serve. So, thank you.
And I wanted to send a shout out to my team.
Hey,
Because, Willie Wright is our program coordinator, and Willie is someone who's very passionate about working with the recovering community. And we just came into an opportunity for 24 more recovery beds. And you'll hear some more about this as we get to rolling out the campaign 24 more opportunities for change to take place. And we're really, really excited about the 24 more because we believe that those 24 more beds are going to make a positive difference in this community.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thanks for you guys for tuning in to Rising Up Recovery, and thanks for joining us today at 100.9 WXIR.
Thank you.
All right.
Woo, we did it! We did it!
Great job.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going
You guys got some
piss
great
Danny off, man. Danny, I saw your eyebrow.
I get a little heated. I told you, it's all
That
good
was
fun.
good. Share right
Right,
there.
well, yeah, I'm serious.
We got some boots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
it
wanna
actually,
get
you
them on the
can
ground.
send it, if you send it
So I
to
need to have you over and
Okay.
take
He
a
likes
look.
doing like a little cassette thing, you guys
Yeah.
know that,
Okay.
Facility.
All right.
You are more than
Yeah.
welcome to
It's 24 Alpine, 39 Alpine Street.
Of course, you have the cars.
I didn't have
And then you- I looked, I gave like the fake, like, no, I must have no.
Guys, take care, thank you.
All right. Oh, we're still-
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still live. It's okay.
So let's